Morning, everybody. If I could just ask everyone to find any seats for now. We'll be moving you around later anyway. Okay, so we're just over time, but hopefully we can make that up. First of all, welcome. Thank you all very much for being here. So my name's Fergus MacDonald. I'm the Senior Program Manager on the Dare UK program. And just a very warm welcome. Thank you all very much for your time today. I know it's a big commitment to take a day out of everything that you're doing to come and join us here. So really appreciate it and really looking forward to the day. So I'm going to take us through a little bit what the aim of today is, together with Ballant, my colleague here, and we'll give you sort of a little bit of an orientation around why we're here. Hopefully that'll be clear to all of you, and we'll sort of work together throughout the day to achieve what we want. First thing so this has been snuck in here. I actually wasn't expecting to talk about this, but if you do want to join us and follow the conversation online, you can do so on X via LinkedIn, and please use the hashtag DareUK use cases for those of you who are all happy to join the conversation online. So I'm going to just give a bit of orientation about the Dare UK program and sort of what the Dare UK program is about, and then lead us a little bit into what we're all here to do today in that context. So I'm going to start on the left-hand side. So over here, and this is really the sort of the mission statement for Dare UK. It is an evolving mission statement, but it's really about, I'll pick out a couple of words there. It's really about the secure sharing, linkage, and analysis of sensitive data. So we're really here to talk about sensitive data. That's really the purpose of the Dare UK program. It's about enabling research using sensitive data. Sensitive data is a broad church, as I'm sure many of you know. So we naturally think about data about people as sensitive, but there is equally commercially sensitive data that's sensitive due to intellectual property considerations, etc. So it is a broad church, sensitive data, but that's really what the Dare UK program is about. The second sort of scope boundary, I guess is what I would call it, is in the middle there. We are funded through UK Research and Innovation, and we operate across all the different research councils. So in terms of sort of research domains, and I'm sort of going through this because we do have members of the public here as well, research councils are aligned with specific types of science, I would say. So social sciences, physical sciences, medical research. And Dare UK as a program spans all of these research councils, all of these research domains, again, as long as it involves sensitive data and sensitive data research. So I hope that's clear. The other thing that I think lastly would just mention, and ties a little bit into the timing of today and why we're all here today, is also that in terms of the program, we are a multi-year program. We're currently coming to the end of our first phase. So phase one started in July of 2021. It ends in March 2024, so in sort of a month and a half, just under 2 months now. And we're in this transition period into the next phase. And that really will come down, I'll touch on it in a little bit, but that comes down to the purpose of today and all of you supporting us with that direction as we go forward. One last point I wanted to mention here, and this is sort of, there's really one message here, and it's about the money, to be honest. There is increasing investment, is really the point here. So what I'm showing on the slide here is the budget allocation for what is called the Digital Research Infrastructure Program. So this is the UK Research and Innovation umbrella program through which Dare UK is funded. The message really is the curve is going up. There is increasing investment in the sensitive data research space. The Digital Research Infrastructure Program has 5 strategic themes. I'm not going to go through all 5 of them. I simply want to point out that one of them is about secure services and tools for sensitive data. So there is recognition from UK Research and Innovation that sensitive data research is increasingly important to answer the big questions, which I hope we're all going to get into today, and the big research questions that we're trying to answer. This is the overarching question for today, and it's really about the opportunity space, not so much about the challenge space. So we're trying to think what could be possible, what are the opportunities, the research questions that we could answer, that we could shed insight into, if this were possible. Right? So it's really trying to think about the art of the possible rather than all of the challenges that we know we have. And really it's about identifying use cases. And a use case here is, the kind of data that we could combine to achieve some specific goal, some specific outcome. And we'll get into that. Balint will take us through, and our partners from the PSC will take us through that as we go through the day as well. So this is the overarching question. I thought maybe it, just would be interesting to see who's here today. So we've sort of used, we've used the research councils, the UK Research and Innovation Research Councils as proxies for science domains. The main message here is there is a significant spread across research domains. So you're all interested in very different types of research. But having said that, you're also interested at the boundaries and the intersections between these research domains. So many of you have, it's a very interdisciplinary group is the message that I would put here. And this is what we want, right? We're interested in those questions that require linkage across traditional research boundaries. Final thing to mention here is we also have members of the public who are joining us. At the end of the day, the program is about, the primary motivation is research for public benefit. And so we have 8 members of the public here spread around, and they will be distributed across the activities we do throughout the day, supporting us with this work, giving us their insight as well. And it's really, really important when we talk about sensitive data, a lot of that data and a lot of the purpose for the research on that data and using that data is for public benefit. And so they have a say in how we go about this. Okay, this is the last one for me. So the outcome of the day. So again, as mentioned, scientific use cases is really what we want out of this, the art of the possible, the opportunity space around sensitive data and sensitive data research. It will be used to inform a report, which is, we're going to do a write-up of the day, and we'll go through some of the next steps later. You will have a chance to sort of play back into that write-up, etc. The more important point for me is really that it's informing the future of the DAUK program. So today is really about the opportunity space and what that means for the DAUK program and the kind of investments that the DAUK program makes in the future and specifically in the next phase as we sort of transition, as I mentioned earlier, into the next phase of the program. So it's really about influencing that direction. So I hope that's clear. I hope that was a reasonable orientation for now. I'm going to hand over to Balint Stewart, who's going to take us through into a bit more detail, really. Thanks, looking forward.
Thanks, Fergus. So yeah, I'm Balint. I'm a program manager with DAUK, and I'm just going to take us through some of the kind of key concepts that are going to come up repeatedly today. Fergus already touched on a few of these. So as Fergus said, the DAUK program is really focused on sensitive data research. So what do we mean by sensitive data? Well, principally, I guess we mean data that's about people, so that data that contains personally identifiable information, names, addresses, etc., or identifying numbers. That could be something like your national insurance number. And perhaps the slightly smaller subsection of sensitive data that we will touch on is commercially sensitive information. So information about businesses, retail information, potentially confidential product details. And just to note here that even data that's been de-identified, as it often is when it's accessed for research, which is where sort of the obvious identifiers like names and addresses have been removed, that data can still be considered sensitive, as it can be possible to still tell who that person is on the basis of the other information within that data. So how is access to sensitive data for research managed? Well, the principles by which it's managed is through the 5 safes framework. So the 5 safes are safe people. So are the researchers who are accessing the data trustworthy from trustworthy institutions and sufficiently skilled? Have they been trained? Safe projects. So is the use of the data to answer the proposed research question sensible, ethical, and lawful? Typically, that means in the public interest. Safe settings, and I'll talk a bit more about safe settings in a minute. Is the research environment where the data is actually accessed sufficiently secure? Safe data. How do we minimize the amount of potentially disclosive data we work with while still keeping it useful? De-identification is perhaps the most obvious way that that's done. And finally, safe outputs. So if anything does leave that safe setting, is anything that's leaving, typically the results of research that's been done, is that safe in terms of maintaining the confidentiality of any of the people that were in that research study. So you're going to hear the term trusted research environments, also known as TREs, and also known as secure data environments, or SDEs. And these are really the sort of safe setting component of those 5 safes. So this is where there's safe, secure computing environments where researchers can access sensitive data for research via a rigorous approval process, which again can essentially be understood in terms of those 5 safes. So data is accessed by approved researchers, so that's safe people. In a de-identified form, that's safe data. And only for approved projects in the public interest, so that's safe projects. The data stays in the TRE, so nothing leaves the TRE and is not downloaded to the researcher's own system. The only thing that leaves the TRE are any research outputs, so aggregated outputs that are rigorously checked to make sure that they are safe and not disclosive. Okay, so that's a little bit on sort of the research infrastructure side. I think I want to just pivot a bit to talk about the sort of data that we're going to be talking about today. So as Fergus mentioned, we are a cross-domain program, and we're really interested in talking about data linkage today. So not considering data sets in isolation, but data linkage and linkage at scale. So I'm just going to talk about both of those things briefly. So what do we mean by data linkage? So data linkage is really the process by which researchers are able to link a record from an individual that's present in more than one data set. So typically that might be across different sectors or research domains. This figure here is from ADR UK, which is concerned mostly with administrative data, so data that's not collected for research itself, but then is made accessible for research. But we're also going to be thinking of lots of different kinds of data, not just administrative data, but also data that's collected specifically for research, like survey data or clinical trial data, and also other kinds of emerging data like smart data or digital footprints data. But we'll get into that a lot more a bit later on. The example here is that with linkage is that if you can, for example, link education records to someone's subsequent employment records, then you can understand how essentially someone's educational outcomes, so what they studied, maybe at A-level, what their grades were, then goes on to influence their employment in the labour market, and then you can begin to understand how those things are related. So the purpose of doing data linkage is really to begin to understand how these things integrate, how different parts of people's lives integrate, to reveal meaningful insights about populations. So we're concerned mostly with aggregate ideas here rather than decisions over individuals. So fundamentally, by analysing sensitive data across domains, this should help us understand better how society works and allow us to develop better policies and services that are of benefit to the public. And that's really why these people in the middle, is the publics, are really the whole purpose behind which we do all of this research with sensitive data. Okay, so that's linkage. So we're going to be talking about bringing different cross-domain data together, but we're also talking here about scale. So what do we mean by scale? What we're really talking about here is at the scale of the whole population of the UK, so 66 plus million people. And why is that important? So this figure is one that Health Data Research UK like to wheel out quite a lot, which really just demonstrates how statistical power increases with sample size. So this is, I think, from the UK Biobank. So this is looking at a relatively simple relationship between blood pressure and your chance of dying of a heart attack. And if you look at with 5,000 participants, it's very difficult to have any confidence in the relationship between these two. Whereas as you get to 50,000 participants or sample size, then you begin to see this sort of positive correlation. So that the higher your blood pressure, the more chance you have of suffering a heart attack and dying. But it's really only at 500,000 participants that you begin to get really confident estimates of what that looks like. So really, it's important to consider how, I mean, this is a relatively simple relationship, but you can imagine with more weaker relationships, then having an even greater sample size will be necessary. Okay, so we've got data linkage, we've got linkage at scale, and we're going to be combining those to generate use cases. So Fergus touched on what we mean by a use case. It's essentially a simple way to describe how linking data, we're going to be mostly talking about sensitive data, but we'll also consider some forms of non-sensitive data, maybe environmental data that's relevant, and how they can achieve specific outcomes when we bring them together. So if we combine sensitive, the form will be, if we combine sensitive data X with sensitive data Y and perhaps other data, what we'll be able to do, we'll be able to do Z, and this will benefit these different groups. So for example, by linking educational attainment data and chronic health disease data, we'll be able to better understand how living with a chronic disease such as diabetes, type 1 diabetes, affects your educational outcomes. And this will benefit individuals with diabetes, as well as policymakers who will be able to make better decisions and provide better support to those individuals with those chronic diseases. Okay, as Fergus mentioned, we're really focused here less on the challenges, which we're sort of really cognizant of, and more about what could be possible if we could link data together. So we're focusing here less on the technology of how this would be done and more what we would do if it was possible. So our assumption is that all data is accessible for research that's currently being collected. All data that needs to be held in a safe setting, so all sensitive data is held in a safe setting, and finally that data can all be safely and securely linked together at scale. Okay, I hope that's clear. So I'm just going to finish up with just some housekeeping. There are no planned fire alarms today, so if the fire alarm does go off, then we do need to evacuate. So there's a fire exit, there's some stairs here just on the right, and at the back of this floor as well. The assembly point is the UCL quad, but there'll be lots of fire marshals to guide you in case that happens. The toilets, the female toilets are just where the coffee is, and on the left and a little bit further on are the male toilets. And there is photography happening, as you may have noticed, during the day. Please come and speak to us if you would not like those photographs to be used on the Dare UK website or social media pages. I know a couple of you already have gone and spoken to our photographer, so we encourage you to do that. Or indeed, if you have any sensitivity to flash photography. And then my final point is just on expense claims. Many thanks to all of you who have submitted your expense claims, if you forms with your bank details, etc. If you haven't yet, please do so. You should have already, if you have, received login details from HDR Finance and we'll also send some more materials on a step-by-step video of how to actually submit your receipts through that system, Continia. Okay, I think I'm going to hand over now to colleagues from the PSC to guide us through today.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Balint, and thank you, Fergus. And it's a real privilege to be here with you all today. So I'll just say a tiny bit about who the PSC are, so you know who me and colleagues are, and then we'll get into effectively the shape of the day, and then much more excitingly, some of the sessions that we have planned to get to the outcome of those use cases. So in terms of the PSC, I'm Antonio. I'm a partner at the PSC. We are a mission-driven consultancy. We exist to make best use of data and digital technologies to make public services brilliant, but we also spend a lot of time running workshops like these where we work with brilliant people who know what they're doing and know what they're talking about to come up with some of the big challenges facing the UK and then turning those into even more exciting opportunities and potentials. So we are going to be around the room with colleagues helping sort of facilitate and guide the conversations. But if you have any questions, any concerns at all as we go through the day, just stick up a hand and there'll be colleagues from Dare UK as well who are helping. The only thing I'll say on a personal note, a number of us have backgrounds in academia and research as well, so it's nice to see my old research council, the AHRC, also covered here. So just in terms of what we will be covering, so thank you to Fergus and Balint for the introductions and the scene setting and beautifully timed. So we will break up the day into a number of sections, and it's deliberately sort of building up to the end output. So at the start of the day, we will start with a hopefully relatively simple exercise, which is just exploring sensitive data, sort of what, examples of sensitive data, what it means to you, how we think about it, and really gathering as much breadth of those different types of data sets. And that will be an interactive activity. We will then move on to challenges, so the big societal challenges that you're all thinking about and working on, but also maybe broader ones and imagining much further. What are those big challenges? After lunch, turning those into specific use cases. So just as Balint perfectly put, if we add data together, what is the benefit? What is the outcome? What is the end problem that we're trying to solve? And from those use cases, we will then seek to prioritize them, and that will help to inform sort of future developments of the workshops. And then very importantly, there will be time for informal drinks and nibbles afterwards. So, implicitly, it's very important that you get to spend time getting to know colleagues from across your fields today, but that we've also left time for that as well at the end of the day. Just some ground rules, which I'm sure won't come as a surprise to any of you. But obviously, as we're going through, we want everyone to be respectful. We've got a diversity of experiences and voices and views here. So, of course, we'll be listening with courtesy and consideration. Obviously, we want to hear from all of you, but appreciate that not everyone wants to stick their hand up. So that's why the way we're facilitating it will be very much writing things down and sharing and discussing and using a variety of different approaches. So please do contribute. Of course, we'll seek to avoid using jargon insofar as is possible, but it's very important for sort of openness that we can do that. And lastly, as we covered as well, this is about opportunities. We of course know that some of these things are technically challenging, and there are various barriers that we can and must sort of seek to address. But this is about those future-facing opportunities. So this is the first section, which is well, ostensibly a simple question, but we shall find out, which is, what does sensitive data mean to you? So just as a quick reminder, obviously Balint went through this comprehensively. So largely personally identifiable information, which is could contain confidential, sensitive information, which could be re-identified as well. So that clearly includes anything which could be, you could remove. You all know these, but you could remove names, but that obviously doesn't necessarily mean it's not identifiable, because through various other means you could identify somebody. And at that bottom point, it's usually sensitive data obviously requires a much higher degree of protection because of those intimate aspects of a person that could reveal. So we're keen in this section to just really think of as many different types of sensitive data as possible and see where that takes us largely. So a few classic examples, so personal health data, which largely spoken about lots, but socioeconomic data, so employment status, or educational sort of attainment data as well. Those are all sort of well-known ones, but they're clearly not, they're by no means a comprehensive list. So we would like you in your tables to spend up to 15 minutes, we'll probably see how you're going after 12 minutes, to just think, and we deliberately have gone light on the post-it notes for sustainability reasons. We'll take feedback as to how wise this was, but just to write on those big sheets, effectively, as many different categories of sensitive data that you can think of, and probably from starting with a high-level category, you might get others which emerge. So this is a very simple mind map example. You've got socioeconomic data, but then you have multiple different subcategories within that, or personal health data, many subcategories within that as well. So we would love for you to spend up to 15 minutes. We'll see how we're going at 10 to 11. Just getting to know each other and getting to write up. There's obviously no right or wrong answers for the moment. We're just trying to get as many different types of data as possible, and then we will supplement that with some other different prompts. But if you'd like to start, we will float around. Ask us any questions if you need them. But please do get started. Thank you. So there's been some great discussion going. We don't want to stop that. One thing that we're mindful of is that actually, I think as often as a research community, we often think first about sensitive data. There's a question as to actually, are we maybe maximizing the value from non-sensitive data as well, and the linkage is there. So we'd love to for you to spend just a further 5 minutes thinking about non-sensitive data and just different types and examples of that. So we have local pollution levels as being one, so that is a sort of of a geographic space, but not necessarily, not person identifiable, there will be lots of other categories. So if you could spend 5 minutes thinking and writing down non-sensitive data categories, that would be wonderful. And we will again continue to circulate around. Thank you. We're just going to put on screen a few more examples. So you've got another 9 or so minutes. Just as a prompt, have you considered all of these? There may be many others as well, so maybe use these as a prompt. Somebody told me earlier, actually, space data, so satellite imagery, low Earth orbit as well could be included there. So to share their reflections on the exercise, and we won't go through everyone, so we'll just pick different tables at a time, and it'll be really good to hear how you found that exercise, what you uncovered, how it felt, and who would like to speak.
So I think that the types of data that we started with really reflect who's around the table, and the kind of work that we actually are involved in. So there's a lot of information here about justice, kind of personal characteristics, and you think we started with that, with kind of the protective characteristics, and kind of just kept going with that. We've also got a heading all about different health types of data. We found education, social services, and the census quite easy to do. Commercial data came in a little bit later, after the prompt, and when we kind of looked at non-sensitive data, me being me, I started off rattling different data sets, things like different boundaries, things that categorise different spaces, green, blue, urban, rural, indices of deprivation and things like that. So I think we have actually managed to involve the non-children social care person on the table. And I think we have got quite a comprehensive list. So people are welcome to come over and look at it rather than we read it all out.
Thank you for the invitation. We would encourage everyone in the breaks to probably circulate and have a look at other people's tables, because we've had the vantage point of being able to see everyone's, and some great examples which aren't necessarily replicated on crime data, on medicines adherence, on many other commercial elements as well. And so hopefully this exercise has really sort of whetted your appetites, but also got the brains whirring about different types of data sets. So this is in many ways almost thinking about all the different ingredients that there are. And in the next sections, we'll be talking about some of those larger challenges, and then looking to beautifully synthesize them together. I did say there will be a break, and that will give you an excellent opportunity to get to meet a few more other people. We'll encourage you afterwards to rotate around tables as well, so you'll get to speak to others. But until then, we will reconvene at 11:30, so please do help yourselves to some lovely snacks and refreshments there. And if you've got any questions from that first session, please do grab one of us, and we'll be on hand to hopefully answer.